Hey everyone. So today we'll be talking about this lead code problem, 3 sum. So you are given an integer array nums. You need to return three, you need to return the triplets, all the triplets such that when they add up, it becomes equal to 0. And no number should be same. We need to always take the different numbers from this given array. Okay, so if you see this example, -1, 0, 1, 2, -1 and -4 over here, -1, -1 and 2 they are it is when you add up becomes equal to 0, then you have -1 0 and 1, which you add up it becomes equal to 0. Also you need to take care that the solution should not contain any duplicates. Okay, so let us take an example over here. So what we can say is, let's have an array -1, then -1 0 1 and 2. We can clearly see that we have -1 0 and 1 as one of the triplet, then -1 and 2 as another triplet. Okay, and there is also a situation where we have -1 0 and 1, where this -1 is on the index 1 and this -1 was on the index 0, but it becomes a duplicate in our output, so we have to ignore that. Okay, now the solution over here would be to first sort this given array. Okay, so coincidentally this array is already sorted, but one step that we have to take is we have to sort the given array. Okay, and I'll tell you why. So what we are trying to do over here is we are trying to find the value of A, B, and C. Okay, such that they become when you add them, it becomes equal to 0. Okay, and we should not have any duplicates over here. So what we'll be trying to do is we'll try to run a for loop after sorting this array, and we'll keep our A always as constant in the for loop. So let's say my I is equal to 0 in the for loop. So this is going to be constant. So my A is always going to be constant over here. And I am going to have variations of B and C in the remaining array so that I get a target equal to 0. Okay. And in the next iteration, I'll have a different A over here. Okay. To consider. So that what will happen is, because I'm running the for loop linearly, I'm calling this array, I'm going to go linear fashion in this array. If I have my A as -1 in the first iteration, and if I have my A as -1 in the second iteration, the chances of getting the value of B and C, which has already been part of the output array, are high. Okay, because over here what we are trying to do is we are trying to always have A as a unique value over here. The moment we have A as unique value, we'll get B and C different to give this target. Okay, so now that we have sorted our array over here, okay, we then take the first iteration where A is equal to -1. Okay, and what we do is we call the two pointer method on a sorted array over here. So we say start, we, we point -1 this as start, and then we have this as end value. Okay, and what we do is we call a while loop on this until all the elements in this array, in this remaining array, are checked. So now what happens is we have -1 as constant steady over here. B and C are supposed to be variables. Okay, so we start with this -1 over here on this pointer, and then we use this 2, and we check whether this is equal to 0. Yes, it is equal to 0. So it goes in our output array. So we have -1 and 2. Okay, now what we do is we increment the start pointer and we get it over here. Okay, so now start is equal to 0. Our A is still -1 because we need to also see, are there any more values in this array that add up to 0. So again our A is -1. Now our B is 0. Okay, and our C is 2. So this value is equal to minus 1 plus 0 is minus 1 plus 2 is 1. Now this value is greater than 0 and we want our target to be 0. Now this value, since this value is greater than 0, that means we need to have a value such that it is near to 0 which, or equal to 0. So we need to decrement this value and shift this pointer towards the left. Because since this is a sorted array, obviously to decrement some value in the overall sum, we need to start having the lesser value somewhere in this three variables. So that is why now that we know that this sum is greater than 0, okay, what we are trying to do is we are trying to decrement the sum. So that is why we are moving the end pointer towards the left. So our new value becomes minus 1 plus our start is still 0 plus our end is 1 over here, which is equal to 0. All right. So we have found another triplet which we add in our output array, 1 over here. Okay. And then we increment the value of start over here. Now start is greater than or equal to end. So now we have to come out of this while loop and then move towards the next iteration of our for loop. Okay, over here. So our next iteration of for loop is now minus 1. But if you consider this minus 1 over here, you realize that we have already used a as minus 1 in this first iteration. Okay. So if we take again a as minus 1, then we'll obviously get somewhere in the remaining elements in this array, we'll obviously get b and c such that this three combination is already present in our output array. And we don't want duplicates. So we have to put a check whether the new value that we are considering, okay, is this new value equal to the previously visited value? If it is equal, then obviously you need to just continue with your for loop and move to the next value. So this is how we are going to make sure by keeping the A's value as a steady value and B and C as the variable value by using the two pointers, we'll make sure that we don't get any duplicates and we'll get unique values in our output. Okay, I know this was quite an exhaustive explanation, but I tried to explain it in such a way that it becomes easier. All right, so let's just jump into the code and see if we can make it work. So I need to have an array of out numbers, basically a array consisting of array of numbers and three numbers. So let me just make sure that I have my output variable ready. So my this output variable will be an array consisting of an array of numbers, and let's initialize it to empty array. Okay. Next is that we need to sort our array because uh, sorting this array will help us, to use those two pointers over there while calculating the values of, while, getting the values of B and C. Okay. So what we can say is we can say nums dot sort, and we can call in our callback function, we can pass those two values and say that uh, please consider numerical sorting. So basically what is happening here is the sort method basically works on strings. Okay, and we have numbers over here. So what we do is we take the first character, we take the second character, and we say, is the first character uh, I mean the first character minus second character is negative value. If it is negative value, that means our A is a smaller number and B is a greater number. If it is equal to 0, I mean, let's say if it is minus 1 and minus 1, so both are equal, A and B is equal, both are equal, which is equal to 0. So we say, okay, both are equal, then just put them in any order in the array, output array. If our B value is greater than 0, okay, or our B value is higher, if this calculation is greater than 0, that means our B value is of higher order than our A. So we put B first and then we put A. So this is how basically this sort works. And basically this sort function is going to mutate our original array. That is why we are just calling it directly over here and we're not assigning it to some any other variable. All right. Now let us call our for loop. So for let I equal to 0, I less than nums dot length I plus plus. Okay. So we have got, so our first value will be nums of I over here. And we need to find the remaining two values. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll say let start equal to I plus 1, the next value from I. Let end equal to nums dot length minus 1, the last value in the array. Okay. Now while start is less than end, we are going to call a loop until our start and end pointers are crossing each other. Okay. So we have kept our A is going to be our constant. Okay. So we'll just find over here. We'll call this a variable target over here, and we'll say that okay, our nums of I is always going to be constant first because currently I is equal to 0, and our start and end are going to be new variables every time in our calculation. So what we'll say is we'll say nums of start and nums of end. Okay. So we are trying to check the calculation of three numbers over here. Now what we are saying is if our target is greater than 0, okay, that means we need to decrement some number to bring it towards 0. Since our target is greater than 0, let's say our target is, let's say, 5, but we want it to come towards 0. That means we have to decrement some value. And since over here, uh, this is our sorted array over here, okay. As I mentioned, if you want to decrement, we'll have to, shift the pointer of ant towards the left so that the value changes to a smaller number. Okay, so that is why we are going to say and minus minus. We are going to decrement the pointer and shift it towards the left. Else if our target is less than 0. Okay, so it is less than 0, we need to increment the pointer of start because we want to make it towards 0. Okay, else we have got our output. The target is equal to 0, so now we need to push all these three numbers in our output. Okay, so we're going to just call this push. We'll say nums of I, then nums of start and nums of end. Okay. Now this is a special situation over here. Our start, now we need to figure out like what we'll do. Should we increase the start? Should we decrease the end in this situation when we already got the target? Okay. So obviously now that we have already got a target, that means we need to uh, make some changes to the pointer because there are still some elements over here and we need to also consider those elements. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that our start value is not equal to the previous start value. If it is the previous start value, then what will happen is obviously we'll get some duplicates. Okay, so first we'll just say, okay, let's increment our start value. Now we'll check whether our new start value is equal to our previous start value. If it is our, if both these values are equal, then why are you considering start again the same? Let's just increment the start again because we want a different start. We don't want the same start. That is why we are calling a while loop over here in this situation. After we have got one output, we are calling a while loop over here because we want to make sure that our previous start and our new start value are not same because we want to always have B and C as variables and A as a constant when we run our for loop. So that is why we are making these changes. Okay. And we also may have to make sure that we don't go do an overflow. I mean, start should not go out above end. So start should be less than end when we do this increment. Because if let's say if our end is 2 and our start becomes 3, that means we have crossed our loop already. So there is no point, incrementing the start value. Okay. So this is uh, so we have this for loop. Okay. And yes, one more thing. In this for loop itself, we need to check over here. If you consider this, we have -1 over here and we have -1 over here. So if we are considering in the first iteration of our for loop a as -1, in the second iteration we don't want a as -1 again. Why? Because the chances of getting 0 and 1 for this iteration, obviously we can get the same triplet over here for the second iteration. And you don't want duplicates. So we want to make sure that every time our a value is different. It's not same as the already computed a value. All right. So we'll have to do a pass over here or check over here. So what we can say is if our nums of I is equal to our nums of I minus 1, then I don't want to do any calculation because obviously I have already taken this scenario previously. So there's no point of taking this scenario again. So I'm going to say just continue. No need to do this again. Let me fix this typo. All right. Okay. And we also have to make sure that I is greater than 0 over here. Why? Because in our first iteration, when I is equal to 0, so it will come over here and say nums of 0 is equal to nums of -1. And we don't have nums of -1. It will give an error. So that is why we have to check whether I is greater than 0. Only then we can have this check. All right. So uh, let us run this solution and see. A function whose declared type is neither void nor any must return a value. Oh yes, we have not returned the value over here. We have got our output array and we have initialized it over here, but we have to also return it. So after our for loop completes, whatever it is, whether it is an empty array or we have got our calculated triplets, we have to return it. All right. So we have got acceptance on the test cases. Let's submit it. Okay. So we have got an acceptance. Thank you.